Hey guys, this is Christina Young, owner and senior designer at RG Home Designs, where we focus on holistic designs, how to renovate and build new homes with non-toxic materials. So today I wanted to talk to you about focal points. A lot of people don't know what they are. The focal point in a space is the center of interest. So it's the first place that your eyes go when you walk into a space. It's where you just immediately look. So if you want to test it, walk in your house or walk in your bedroom and see exactly what you look at right away. That would be your focal point. Sometimes it's not good. Sometimes your focal point is an ugly piece of art or grandma's outdated fireplace. In my case, I have kids, but it could really be anything, but you want it to be a good thing. So this is how you're going to create a great focal point, something you really want people to look at, not look away from. And you can actually use a focal point to draw the eye away from things you really don't want people to notice. You have to be careful when renovating a space. A lot of people who want to stay within budget, which is totally understandable, they cut in the wrong areas. So they'll really go all in and update everything in the kitchen and put all their money into beautiful updated pieces. But they didn't update the pendant lights over the island. They figured we'll do this later. We don't want to spend money there. They still work. It's fine. They're not that bad. Well, the pendant lights that weren't that bad before with the kitchen now stick out like a sore thumb because you have updated everything else and it basically is screaming, "Look at me, I'm ugly." So that now is your focal point, and you just spent 100 grand on your kitchen and nobody's even noticing it because they're just staring at these terrible lights that you didn't include. So focal points can go either way. And just because you renovate a space, if you don't do it correctly, doesn't mean that you're going to have a good one. So it's important to pay attention to that. Focal points can be created in three ways: through color, contrast, or placement. This is a bright color, a pop of color. Maybe you have all room and then one thing thrown in red. Eyes are going to go there immediately. Or maybe it's a super bold wallpaper. Or it could be something that you've placed a little bit out of line, or that's in the center of a wall, or a little off center, something a little different that people immediately are going to look at. So it could be through color, through placement, or through contrast. So here's how you can create a focal point with color. If you don't have a color wheel, I definitely think you should invest in one. They're just a few dollars on Amazon, and they will help you out a lot through your renovation. So a color wheel usually has directions on it that can walk you through what colors do what and what colors go with what. But if you still need help with that, I will put a link for our other video explaining how to use a color wheel. But get your color wheel, and let's say your main color is blue. You're going to want to look at a contrasting color to the blue. That is going to be the color that you throw in, whether it's pillows, if it's that one accent chair. A contrasting color to your main color can become a really beautiful focal point. You can use it on your fireplace and draw the eye up the wall. That's going to make your room appear large and grand. You might use it to something that means a lot to you. Maybe it's a family heirloom and you want to paint it and you use that contrast color. You definitely want to think through what colors you're going to use in your space and then look at that color wheel and look at the contrast colors. That's how you can create a focal point with color. How you can create a focal point with contrast. Black and white is a really good one. Usually in designs, if you look in any high-end design magazines or really anything you see on HGTV, you're going to see somewhere where somebody throws in something black and white. And it kind of goes with any design where you can throw in something. It can be small, it can be a chair, it can be some pillows, it can be drapes. But black and white is a really cool way to, any pattern of black and white, could be stripes, could be a check pattern, houndstooth, is a great way to draw the eye to it because our eyes are automatically attracted to contrasting colors. So that is going to be the first thing people look at. How you would do a focal point using placement, place something where the eye is drawn to naturally. Like sometimes people, if you go into a beautiful garden and there's a wonderful fountain in the middle, that is the focal point. And that is because of the placement of being in the center of the garden. Sometimes when people walk into a room, the fireplace is in the middle, or a beautiful dining table with a centerpiece, a chandelier or a light can be placed in the middle of the room, or it's the first thing you see, and it's big and it's bold and it immediately draws your eye to it. So placement can be, you can use all of them to do a focal point. You can do a centerpiece that's black and white with one pop of color in it and make it a heck of a focal point. No doubt people are going to be drawn to that. So you can always use all three. You can use one, you can use two, but placement is a fun one and one that I think I see the most. So you have to be careful when doing this that you don't do it wrong. You don't create the wrong focal point. I already gave the example about the kitchen. I'll give you an example from a project that we did a few years ago at a house in Boca Bridges. It was $100,000 remodel. It was gorgeous. We just redid this very modern living room with grays, and we had one accent color of blue, and it was really beautiful. But the owner of the home was very connected to his nephew, who was little, and his nephew made this little art ceramic thing that was all different colors, and it looked like a kid made it, and he did a great job, but it was a bunch of different colors that didn't really go with the space, and he really wanted it on that shelf. Of course, we respect that. That's your house. You want it there, of course. But unfortunately, this became the focal point of the room. The room that he spent $14,000 on a entertainment center, and he spent $12,000 on the couch. And you had this gorgeous view of this wonderful pool with palm trees lining it right outside the door. But the first thing you noticed when you walked in was that tiny little ceramic dog on the shelf. So you have to be careful. So if you're designing a room, one way that you can do color really wrong is, let's say you're going for this beautiful, natural, organic vibe, a lot of light greens, sages, olives, and, browns and woods and things like that. And then you decided to get this little tiny elephant that you bought when you were in India and leave it on the table, and it's bright red. Now that tiny little elephant that you bought is your focal point. And maybe you want it to be, and that's fine. But if you don't want it to be, then it can't go there. Because it's different, because it pops, because it doesn't go with the flow of everything else, it's now a negative focal point. It's not where you want your eyes to go. You want your eyes to go to the rest of the room that's beautifully designed and flows and gives you a feeling of peace. And that stands out wrong because of the color. One way that you can do contrast focal points wrong is if you do too much. So if you have contrasting colors right next to each other all over the room, it's going to be busy, it's going to be hard to pay attention to, and it's going to naturally cause anxiety when people look at the space. So too much contrast is not your friend either. So you want to make sure that it's done not too small that you don't notice it, not too big or too much that it's overwhelming and looks like you didn't know what you were doing. So that's important. So pay attention to that when it comes to contrast. One way that you can do a focal point wrong using placement is if you walk into your front door, I'll just give you this an example, and The contractor that hung your entry light didn't measure and just did it with his eyes or whatever, and it's not centered. Now it being off center is immediately going to draw your eye to that. And it's not going to draw your eye to the beautiful chandelier. It's going to draw your eye to the screw up from whoever hung it. And immediately people are going to be like, why is that there? That doesn't look right. You don't want people's initial feeling to be negative, like that doesn't look like it should be there. Even when you want things to stand out, you want it to look like it purposefully stands out. Like you put it there so that it does have a point, it does have a purpose, and it stands out for a reason. You don't want it to be there and everyone's eye go to it because somebody messed up. So that's where placement can mess you up. It can also be if furniture is not placed correctly and you walk right in and you hit a couch and it doesn't flow through the room and you have to like maneuver around different pieces, or there's not enough space, then that can also become your focal point. And a lot of designers don't recommend picking your focal point first and designing from there, but that's exactly what I do. When I'm designing a space, I will choose what I want the focal point to be and where I want it to be, and design around that. So whether it be the art, whether it be a accent wall, I love me an accent wall, a really, really funky wallpaper, or a really cool chandelier, whatever, I then design from there. So I will pick all the other pieces to accent it and point to it so it flows beautifully. This is something that I think can be really helpful where you don't know where to start. Start with what you want your focal point to be. This is all I have today for you for focal points. I hope it was a help. If it was, like, subscribe, and you can get all of our tips on how to have a beautiful, healthy home. We are excited to share all of our tips and tricks with you. And thanks for watching.